at 6. Call the meeting to order at 6:01. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So I have a motion to accept the agenda. Second. Oh, before we get going any further, will somebody take notes on who proposes the motion and who seconds it and what the vote is? And then just give it to me and then I'll put I'm happy to put the minutes together.
Okay.
But if you could just track that, because I can't do that and think and write at the same time.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, or it'll be really long. So we have Jason and Fran for the acceptance of the agenda. Any additions, modifications,
No.
corrections, nothing? Okay. Is there anything, Barbara, that you wanted on the agenda that is missing tonight? Beautiful. Okay. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay. I don't have any correspondence. We did receive a report, because we're into reports now, from the tax collector. And she emailed it to everybody. And so I have a copy of it here if anybody needs to look at it. But things seem to be tracking pretty much like they have been previously. So I think we're in pretty good shape there. No one is here from the Board of Ed, so there is no Board of Ed. I will ask the Board of Ed for their class ratios.
Yeah.
Enrollment and class ratios.
Did we hear from them or? Nothing.
They just not. Barbara, did we receive any type of financial report from them?
I don't think
Because this is like 2 times or 3 times in a row. isn't it?
Yeah, well, and they're supposed to produce a financial report at least quarterly.
Right.
So, and
Since
that
they
did
did
not
last,
happen.
yeah.
Yeah,
The other thing is, I wouldn't mind, I think at some point. We tend to be rather incremental with how we're dealing with the board's finances, and I do think, especially having just gone through the assessment process and frankly, the tax process, I wouldn't mind kind of having a session with them just frankly on the whole approach, because I think at some point, while we're trying to hold our own with that, I think we get too comfortable with it, says the liberal Democrat even, but I wouldn't mind
like
us taking a little bit more of a robust, look at their finances and testing them a little bit on, are they doing everything that they could do? Because we've all got to be very mindful of, frankly, how the weight, I mean, when you look at some of the other towns around which are disasters, and we are so lucky financially, not to, I know that, it takes half of our budget about, whereas you look at New Fairfield and everything, it's disaster, there.
Right.
But on the other hand, we don't want to wait till that happens to us either, so.
No, well, and part of it is that we don't want them spending frivolously.
Right, so I wouldn't mind, I mean, not to be critical or anything else, but just to have, I think we just have to have that conversation period.
It's not just about the enrollment.
Right.
Similar to what we did a few years ago.
Yeah.
That's what you're thinking. I think there would be.
And we've got a new board chair there and everything, so it might be a good time if we can find time on the
You're
agenda.
the superintendent
Yeah.
for the region.
That's right.
Yes.
And I don't know what kind of how far she's gone with any of the 6 towns with their budgets or anything,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
But I can talk to Jen and find out.
Okay.
So would you want a joint meeting or would you want to just invite them to come to our next meeting?
I think just have them come to our meeting, I don't think anything special, yeah.
Okay.
But you look at, frankly, some of the other towns, which are just nightmares.
Yes.
Uh,
Oh, if sharing the cost per pupils in the $50,000 range. Holy cow.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I will do that.
Okay.
Anything else on the Board of Education from you all? Anything from you, Barbara? For the Board of Education?
No.
No, okay. So then that takes us to the Board of Selectmen, Marty.
Hi, just kind of updates on a couple things. Steep grant still has not come out yet. We normally expect that in July, but they have not come out with that. As you remember, the legislature changed the 500K limit to $1 million. Maybe they ran out of money. I just heard from the state comptroller today that they actually have 4.9 billion, I think is the number he used in the rainy day fund. So fiscally, I think the state is better. I have talked to Maria Horn, who sits on the bonding committee, and she still has not had that put before them, obviously, to move on that. So we're still standing by to hopefully involve ourselves, the town, in that one. Cybersecurity, we did have we're still in the grant process with the DEMIS and the feds, Federal Department of Homeland Security, for cybersecurity and other upgrades to the town's communication systems, primarily. That's about a $20,000 grant application we put in. We're still waiting to hear on that. I did talk to the grant administrator for the state the other day. He was busy having his third child, so he was a little behind. He apologized. But it's also with FEMA in the middle of DHS and all that going crazy. We expected there's going to be a little delay on that, but they should be coming out. Hopefully, they said in October, and this is still October, so we're hoping that we'll hear something soon on that. We did get some positive thing on election security. If you're aware, maybe you're not aware, but we do have camera systems working now within the town. We have one specifically on the election absentee ballot box. The state is requiring that to be under constant for us to have a permanent box for absentee ballots. And but the legislature did put out a bill last year that requires each town to have that camera and to record all election whenever a absentee ballot is out for an election, to record that for 24/7 and to keep that from the time the absentee ballots are first put out until the end of the election, the voting day for that election process. We have to keep those videos online for 1 year, keep them in-house in case something comes up. So we started working on that this year. Joyce has done a phenomenal job of helping to work with both the registered voters and the town clerk to provide that video system. We have, I think, 5 cameras now, which will be in place for the early voting, which starts Monday, upstairs on the second floor, and also on the entrances and exits, entrances of both sides of the building into the parking lot and so on. So we are working on keeping that. There's some cost. I shouldn't say a lot necessarily, but there is a cost to holding that extensive video. As you can imagine, there's a lot of video. The cameras themselves record and keep in a SIM card on the camera itself up to about a month or to 3 months worth of data. But we do need to offload that since we have extended now voting times and all that with early voting. So we're working with Darlene to make sure we have all that set up, working with Yucatech as well to put together a server that we can download all of our data and keep that video for the time period. It actually isn't required until September of 25, the next fiscal year. You'll see that in our budget this year, or excuse me, next year, the budget we'll be preparing here in a couple of weeks, really, for that and for the whole security and our whole camera system that we all need to get up to speed on, I guess, best way to put it. But this year we were able to use 2 grants that were given to us through the Register of Voters to actually help pay for those, at least 7,000 of that. We received a $2,000 grant. Every town did, a minimum at least 2,000 grants. Some cities obviously got more from the Secretary of State for early voting. We have in our budget, you guys know we put a huge budget piece together last year for personnel because we recognize what it would cost to man for early voting. So We covering that, we did get a grant for $5,000 from an organization that supports across the state with early voting. So we were able to take the Secretary of State's 2,000 and that $5,000 other early voting grant from the ROV and apply it towards the security cameras. So there's, we still have been able to come up about $6,000 or $7,000 probably of additional cost, but it did help us be able to cover some of the cost and move towards the security now instead of waiting towards next year. Next year will be mostly the maintenance of the data, the cameras, updates and things like that. So, and we're still putting all that data, all that, those actual numbers together. So we'll get that to you, obviously in the budget season as we get going. So that's the big updates on financials from the town right now. Obviously we'll talk a little bit later on regarding the automatic or the safety security camera system coming in. So, but that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Any
Madam
questions?
Treasurer? What?
By the way, just, so Marty, just on the early voting, so you said you've got that basically covered, but is there any, and what's the total number? It's less than $10,000, is that what you're basically saying? How much, Barbara?
That's just, that's specifically, Jason, for the camera system that's going to be required to support our voting process. With the absentee ballot box, and then keeping security within the halls of the town during voting. Since this, town hall, the room you're in is our voting area, and also to make sure that we have security coming in to and out of the building. From both the back door and the front door, as well as to the parking lot, so that we can see within that 75 feet that we're required to keep free of any kind of voting, electioneering kind of things. We can be able to cover all that, and again, it's a security issue. The town, the state, the country, obviously is a little has trepidation about what's been going on, and so at least we're trying to cover what we can, electronically.
So Marty, these cameras aren't just going to be used for election time. These are going to be permanent cameras, right?
They're permanent cameras, correct? They're permanent cameras. Yeah, permanent cameras.
And the personnel, there is some extra personnel cost basically associated with the early voting, or is it just?
Oh, yeah, about almost $40,000.
Right, so okay. So the answer is we gotta pay for for the assistant registrars during that whole period, which we know.
Correct. The moderators, all the assistant registrars, all the election, all people, poll watchers, the whole 9 yards. Yeah, it's in the budget. If you look at our budget this year, you'll see the number. And it's significant, obviously, the number of days that we have, 21 days of early voting, just coming up, plus what we had in August, plus what we had in June, or actually in August. June we paid for last year out of that 10.5 that the Secretary of State gave each town last year. And they waited to the very end to give us anything this year, and it turned out to be at $2,000. That since we already had that, because we knew that we assumed, let's put it that way, that the state wouldn't come up with any money to help cover the early voting costs personnel wise. We had voted, and you guys had supported all that throughout the budget season, right, and became part of our budget. So we have those costs covered. But is what we think we have covered anyways. We'll see exactly how the cost is once we're done. But we did a pretty good job. Therese and Sal, but Therese specifically did a really good job of trying to pull all that together with numbers.
Marty, is early voting here to stay?
That's a good question. One of the things on the issue this year is the state constitutional amendment to allow a early or a absentee ballot without any reason. No excuse, I guess, what they're calling it, no excuse absentee ballot. That might be something that would knock out early voting if you can use absentee ballot anytime. That's some of the guesswork I think that the legislature's gonna have to work with and the governor's gonna have to figure out. Personally, I don't think it's gonna happen. I think we might go for a no excuse early absentee ballot, but I still think early voting is some part of it is going to be here to stay. There's people that just aren't, want to actually vote in person. They can't make, the absentee ballot. I think Darlene probably will be able to give you a better idea of exactly how that all would work out, and what the town clerks who administer all the absentee ballots think about all this. But yeah, that's the constitutional amendment for no excuse absentee ballot could put a a limit on how many days actually goes for early voting, but I don't know, I just think once, that, and what can I say? Every time somebody passes a bill, it never takes out an old bill. It just adds to the ones we have. So, I guess maybe I'm a little cynical in that case, but I'm hoping that at least it gives, the towns anyway, a better view of exactly how to handle voting, early voting, absentee ballots, and so on. Right now it's all up in the air, and we're kind of struggling to keep things going. But hopefully, at least they'll give us some clarity onto what the state wants to do with early voting and absentee ballots.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Barbara.
So I did prepare just a very brief report. It's giving you the same information that I typically give you, the transactions for the month, the dollar amount associated with those transactions. The middle section is the actual versus budget to date. But the one thing I do want to bring your attention to at this time is already the projected amount of expenditure for the EMS staffing is going to exceed the appropriations. So
Have you gotten an accounting from them at all about?
we've had meetings with them, yes, and we did get some documentation showing how many calls they've had and what was billed out and what is pending billing. So we still have some ongoing meetings to do with them. But I don't think that's gonna change this projection.
And I assume all the surrounding towns are getting the same pothole.
Well, I think there's some towns that aren't paying for staffing, they're just doing it with volunteers, so.
Mhm.
Every town is handling it just a little bit
Gotcha.
differently.
All right, well, I guess we'll continue to watch that bottom line and, the anticipated growth, yeah.
Yeah, I did ask,
By the way, and is there any on the volunteer front, which we've kind of keeps,
Mhm.
atrophying? Is there any other type of incentive we can, which even might have some cost, but still might save us
Yeah.
something, is there anything we can think
they
about?
have a program in place where they actually give a stipend to the volunteers for signing up for shifts.
Right.
I don't want to speak extensively about it because I don't have a lot of
Sure.
knowledge. I did ask the group that we met with, that Marty and I met with last week, to come to a Board of Finance meeting
Yeah.
with a presentation for all of you to help explain the whole process and explain.
Cause I think we'd be open to, right,
Yeah.
if it's, cause if it nets out, to our favor.
So,
Don't the members of the fire department also get a tax break?
Right, yeah, they do get up.
they do.
Yeah.
Yes,
So when the EMS is considered part of the fire department?
I believe that's true.
Yeah.
Yes, that they get the tax break as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, but when there's a shortage, supply drives demand
Right.
and price, so, yeah.
So I suggested to them that they put together a presentation for your board and come to one of your meetings early in the budget season.
Okay.
So.
Thank
You're on board with that and they'll prepare something.
So should we pick a date tonight?
If you want to, Marty and I do have another meeting on the calendar with them. I think it's in the beginning of November, so I can certainly give them that information then.
All right, so November, December definitely would be the time to
For a budget crunch.
do it, yeah.
Okay.
Sooner rather than later.
Yeah, well, the November meeting, you
Who's
said
got
at the
it, right.
beginning of November. In November.
Yeah, I don't have my calendar in front of me. I don't know, Marty, do you know what our meeting is with them?
I wanted to say, we thought it was, let me see if I can pull it up. I thought it was
think
the
it might
6th.
be the day after the election.
Right, it is the day after the election, it's the 6th.
Okay, so the Board of
Wednesday.
Finance, the scheduled Board of Finance meeting is for November 13th. So,
Okay, well, how about if you pencil them in and I'll send them an email. And if
Okay.
it doesn't work.
okay, then we'll go
I'll
for
ask them
December
to-
18th is the other. Let us know, so I know.
I mean, Nancy, if I could make a recommendation, I think a letter or request or whatever coming directly from you as the chair of the Board of Finance.
Send it to John.
I mean, we've been working with them, but I think, and they understand that, that they need to come in and talk to you guys. We didn't have as you remember, a very good presentation last year, during budget time with them. They were busy with other stuff going on, and I know even Bonnie, had only limited information to pass during the budget hearings in the finance side. So I think if you were to request a time when they could meet, give them a chance to come back with dates that would fit your schedule. Either November or December, that would be good. I know they're busy. We've always been struggling to find times for all of us to get together, all their leadership as well as Barbara and myself. But I think it's nice, I think, to have that reach out directly from the board of finance.
Okay, I will reach out to John. It's still John, right?
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Okay.
wondering if can we ask for a mandatory quarterly meeting from them? I mean, this is a lot of money to
Yeah.
spend every year.
Until the solution is figured out.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
We've been asking for quite a while, and I'm being impatient at this point. Because this is huge.
You're right.
This is huge.
That's what I explained to them and told them that the best thing would be to come to your meeting and
Well, everybody has a stake in this. We all wanna,
Let's keep it friendly.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
I'd like
We need that.
But it's an iceberg sitting there, right?
Yeah.
It is.
Yep. Okay, so I will send that email. Okay. And anything else for us, Barbara?
Nope.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. So, the assessor will be attending our November meeting. Casey wasn't gonna be here and he was not going to be available to Zoom in and he really wanted, he was the one who made the request.
Right.
Right, yes.
So, and Jen was very gracious about moving to the November meeting. And Bonnie sent out the annual report. I think it looks terrific. I don't know if you all had a chance to take a look at it.
Yeah, I did.
So that's the old business reports. And then we have a selectmen's request to allocate $50,000 from the undesignated fund for an automated speed enforcement program. My first question, Marty, is that one of those blinking signs that tells you what the speed limit is and then how fast you're going?
I wish it was that simple. I really do. If that would be able to curb some of the speeding and some of the concerns that we have from our residents about the large amount of traffic and the speeding that occurs, that would be wonderful. That probably would not be $50,000, I'm sure. We've tried that with, your speed is, we have those speed signs on coming and going north and south. We've got it on Elizabeth Street. We have it across the board. And that's, I think sometimes people decide to see how quickly they can get the speed up to where it blinks off, where they don't even track anymore. I've heard that as well. But no, this is actually for the speed cameras for a full enforcement program of ticketing using automated cameras to capture vehicles that are in violation of what will be an ordinance that we're in the middle of creating or actually adapting.
So this is ticket in the mail, basically, Marty?
Yeah, this will be a mail program, right?
But basically the violator will just get a ticket in the mail if they break.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
Which they do on the West Side Highway in New York, right? Which, yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, toll issues, other states are using this quite a bit. I know overseas they are. Canada has a huge program. A lot of these folks have actually developed the programs through Canada. Some of the stuff, if you go on any of the website, you'll see in French as well in Quebec. But yeah, actually what I sent you was a two-phase piece to this. The cost is actually in the cameras themselves, not in the municipal enforcement system for the administration of the camera of the ticketing system. That's all done. It's all paid for by the tickets themselves and by what the state, when they pass this ordinance or this state legislature, the state statute to allow the cameras to be used. They were very specific on how much you can charge for administrative cost per ticket. For even online using a credit card, there's a certain amount that goes on that. And all that is laid out in the 2024 DACRA municipal enforcement system quote that I sent you. Everything there is covered within, there's no additional cost for the processing. That actually pays for itself when we send out the tickets. And there's a
So,
cost
Marty,
reward.
yeah, but just to be clear, so the 50,000 itself, which is just for the equipment, does that also pay for itself out of the ultimate, I mean, is this a cash flow issue or is it a,
No, actually,
a true expenditure?
right, there are only a few different areas which you can use any income you get off of this. You can use it
Right.
for speed enforcement and go right back into the program, pay back for the cost of the camera, which is what, my intent is at first, is to do that. Any residual after that, after the town has paid back for the cameras, for that $50,000, would be to go towards transportation within the town. Roads, bridges, sidewalks, everything having to do with the actual infrastructure of the town itself with roads and so on is what it can be used for. And then enforcement, it can be used for education. It can be used for things that are specific, very specific. This doesn't go into the general budget. I'm sure Barbara would have to put up a whole separate account for this, and we would monitor it. But it's very specific what the state will come back and request us to do. There's an audit system in place with this with the state. There's monthly report, or I think it's quarterly reports, if I remember right. I think they're still developing exactly. DOT is still developing and how they want us to report it. These towns. We're one of the few early towns that are putting in for this. But we've been, tracking with the increased number of people in town, the welcome that we love to give to our visitors, but we still have some problems with those that like to use our, especially south on 7 going out of town as a drag strip. I hear it Sunday afternoons and at night and so on. Even during the day, even on a Friday afternoon, I'll see people speeding through town, going way above the 25 mile an hour limit. As you all know, the town, looked at this a few years back and looked at our speed enforcement and asked the state, and the state agreed to reduce the speed limit, hopefully to get people's attention to reduce speed. But through our months, May, June, August, when we had the data tracker system we put up, where we actually track the number of vehicles coming through, the speed data and so on. I've got reams and reams of data on how fast people are going, way above the speed limit, and how many vehicles actually come through town, which is sometimes a surprise as well. So we have to put all this together, and actually, so what we're, so to get back to what I'm asking for the Board of Finance, we need to look at two speed camera systems. Both right now would be looked at. Our Board of Selectmen passed a resolution, or passed a vote to request this, to allow me to request this from you, with the proviso. We tried to put solar systems to power these cameras. We're going to try to do that. Solar, as you know, it can be an up and down thing, especially at night. It does limit, with the batteries in board, limit a little bit of the capture, but the systems have been proven. They've passed the state. Both of these organizations that would be working with us, the camera, the Enforcer Plus camera quote that we have from Traffic Logics have already gone through an intensive state review, and are being worked at in the town of Washington right now. They're about ready to put those in. They've gone through their ordinance development, their Board of Finance, and their town meetings to get this program in place. So we're basically piggybacking on them and on what they're doing. Randy DeBella, our town legal advisor, also is the town of Washington's legal advisor. So he's had been working with us on the ordinance to make sure that the ordinance is passed. Everything looks good from what the state has done for Washington. So the big thing would be whether our town actually wants to put this in place, this program in place, and therefore we'd have to have the funding at least the funding set up through the Board of Finance to go to the town meeting. Our ordinance would have to be, we'd have the discussion on the cameras and then the ordinance itself.
So Marty, that was my next question. Exactly. On something like this, as touchy as it can be, and as one put this, libertarian as some folks can be in in a town on something like this, which can be highly personal. There is a mechanism in which the voters get to weigh in on it. And you're saying
Absolutely.
it's,
Yeah, they make the final decision.
Okay.
They'll make the final
there's,
decision.
that's, okay, that's the magic, yeah, that's the magic.
So my question, Marty, is, so the cameras are the lion's share of the cost. But I assume that the program is being provided by, who's providing the software?
The software is, the camera software itself is through Traffic Logics. They've already developed this software in use in Florida, extensively in use in Ohio. Michigan, I believe or Illinois, excuse me, is another big one that's being using the software itself. The integration software that comes into taking the video and sending it back to the town for a law enforcement person, which would be our resident trooper, to actually review each of the violations, let's put it that way, to make sure that the license plate is absolutely read and it's correct and so on. And then that process then is put in place through the Dacratech folks actually have the software in place to take that all the way through to sending out the fine, the citation, and so on to the individual. So once it's been gone through our review by our law enforcement personnel, and each violation is verified that it's a good catch of the license plate and so on. Again, this is a LiDAR system, so it's very specific, very good at only looking at the license plate. It doesn't look at the person in the car. The actual citation would go to the owner of that vehicle, the license plate registration, person registering that vehicle. And so it's not going after any individual specifically. It'd be the responsibility of the owner of the vehicle. It's in violation to actually, figure out who was driving at that time, and then you go from there. But yeah, the fine would go to them.
So a couple of follow-up questions. So if the speeding ticket is going to the owner of the vehicle, does that mean that ticket will go on that owner's license?
No, there is no, this is a purely civil situation from the town. It's not a state thing, so there's no points. There is there's no letter to, or follow-up to the insurance, nothing at this point. The only repercussion that could be is if you get multiple tickets and you don't pay them, there is a possibility for us to send that to the DMV and have that vehicle's registration held up until all tickets are processed. But then again, that's a civil issue, not one of going to any collection. I mean, it could be collection agency in situation, but then again, it's between the town and the individual itself, not the state, not the DMV. Nothing having to do with putting any points on a license or suspending anyone's license or at all.
Another question.
Hmm?
So annual software updates, I assume, will have to be put into the budget?
Actually, that's part of the actual cost of the camera itself. There's a 2-year upgrade for everything. It's a kind of warranty system. Any upgrades that were needed, any problems with the camera itself, the company would come back, Traffic Logic would come back and service it. They actually do the installation. They do the maintenance, make sure everything's working on it. It's a 2-year, basically, everything's included for 2 years for each camera. So anything after that, we do buy the camera, it does become our property. But then, they do all the servicing and so on. It's basically a long-term repair and replace issue with the company itself under that purchase agreement. So 2-year, it's a 2-year program.
So you have the cameras, you have the videos. What about the software? Because that's going to change.
Well, the software could be updated, but again, over that 2-year period, there would be no cost for any change to the software.
I'm talking about year 3.
Yeah.
Let's go to year 3. Can we anticipate that there will be a cost? Because there would have to be a renewal or an upgrade or an updating or something, I would imagine, after 3 years.
Not necessarily. Cameras have been in place in I think they were talking about, I can't remember the name of the town in Florida. They've had these cameras for years and they've worked fine. There's been no problems with the cameras. The systems and software, I mean, if there's a camera breakdown in year 3, sure, whatever it would cost to fix that, to have them come out, that probably would be a cost. I don't know what that is. again, because we've had little data on that specifically in Connecticut, because it's only a 1 year old statute that the legislature passed. So we certainly could, I could find out more about that for sure, about any follow-on. But I did ask about the time, within the 2 years of the warranty of the camera itself. But I don't know if any, yeah.
So maybe I'm missing something, but you have equipment, right?
Right.
Software. They're two different components. So yeah, the camera is a physical thing, it breaks, you repair it or whatever. I'm talking about the software side of the operation.
That's Dacrotex, the software that processes the photo and so on, that sends it to us, to the town, to look at and review, make sure it's a good catch, it's a good violation or not a violation. That software, from what I understand, with Dacrotech talking to their general manager of the program, there's not necessarily an update for it at this time. There could be something. I have no. Let me see if I can see. I don't see.
That's all software gets updated. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast.
Sure, and that's all. But all right, for 3 years. It's a 3 year program for the software. I'm sorry, it's a 2 year for the camera. And it's renewable in 1 year terms at the current rate. But all the software, everything else is all in right here. If you go to Dacre's piece, if you have a chance to look at that, everything is within the cost of processing the citations. All costs would be captured in that. There is no out-of-pocket cost for anything having to do with right now, the software or the processing of any of the citations and so on. It all is included within setup, configuration, initial training, automatic vehicle donor lookups, portal online appeal process. There's an appeal process. There's only a couple things that you can appeal on, for sure, but everything is paid for. So the minimum monthly license fee, that's what the minimum, in processing citations, we'd have to have that minimum, or we'd have to cover anything that wasn't a minimum. If we don't have, say, we only have $1,000 of fees for a month or something like that, we'd have to look at paying for the company. Actually, its software and its work. But right now, it looks like we'll be way over that each month, just looking at the data. Yeah.
The other, and based on your data, whatever, just how many violations are we talking about if you kind of lay this over the data that we've got for the test period? Right.
Right. So in May,
I'm asking that because the question is it a big number of violators or small? If it's a big one, then do we know how many appeals there are? And are there other avenues where there's some civil something if you have a huge number who are there contesting it, and are we liable? Is there potential liability for us or something?
No, there's no, as long as we have an ordinance in place, there is no liability for us to have the system. All right, it's all covered within KERMA. It's all covered within everything we do. Especially if it's a machine, you're not taking my picture, you are, giving me a fine, and I'm contesting that I was not speeding, okay? There is some exposure there, and the only thing I'm just saying is you ought to be aware of because once it's just doing it automatically. It's not like when you've got a cop doing it where they're selective about how many tickets they do, not because they're restraining themselves on tickets, but just how many a human can do. If you're at a point where a machine is doing every single car that crosses that limit, is that a big number of cars? And if it is, and I do think the wrinkles with this, enabling legislation or not, wind up being, if you've got people saying, whatever you've calibrated at, I disagree with it as the driver, and I'm hiring a lawyer or something, especially if it's somebody who's in their third or fourth or fifth violation. I just am wondering if that's gonna lead to some expenditure for us defending that stuff. Okay, once again, the person that reviews that verifies there's a violation is our resident trooper, who is covered under the same law enforcement authorities as any trooper on the road. That's the whole point about the state allowing this to come to the municipalities to actually do enforcement. You must have a certified law enforcement program. Now, we could hire people and train people to do that, that would come under that, under law enforcement. We're not doing that. We're doing that with our resident trooper, who will review that, spend about an hour or two a week, looking through the cameras, looking through the violations and verifying that there are violations. That in itself covers that same thing that you were talking about of a trooper on the highway. Their state has already said the state will verify all the calibration for all this equipment every time we go out. So all the time the calibration, the state requires, the time period for the calibration. I'm not sure what that is, to be honest with you, but they will review and certify the calibration on everything. So you're right. When someone says, hey, my car's been picked up 3 times, I wasn't even in the state, and so on, then we would go back to look at the image of the license plate and the time period and verify that it was still a good one, a good catch or not. And we also have the numbers of numbers is in the hundreds. Let me put it this way: it's in the hundreds every month of people coming through our town well over the speed limit that would be within this. Right now, the state requires us to be 10 miles. Before we even look at giving citations 10 miles over the registered speed limit for that area that we're covering. So there's already plans in place to make sure we look at it. Because we do have our resident trooper looking at it, people like first responders that are driving through town that might trigger the camera, they can already be eliminated as potential. And other issues that come up, we can already review that in advance, so that we're not giving out, tickets for people that are doing a duty for some reason, whether it's an emergency response or emergency management personnel or something else. That's already part of our review process, and why we are doing that with our resident trooper is to cover that through our law enforcement. Resident troopers, state troopers are already involved with this. They've already been actually working with the company, both of these companies. I went to a conference in Wethersfield to chiefs of police. As a matter of fact, there's a chief of police meeting that is occurring, I think, this week in Boston to talk about that state by state. And right now it's getting both the chiefs of police as well as the unions and so on approvals for using this in the municipalities. Obviously, that all went through in the legislative process. A lot of people were able to to testify pro or con on this, and cons far outweighed the pros. The state police like it. Maybe just to get off topic a second, Jason. State police like this because they're undermanned and they're not recruiting as many people as they'd love to for the state trooper program. This does take some of the pressure off of the traffic enforcement piece, especially in and around the towns and villages where this could be helpful, like in Kent with 2 state highways, 341 and 7. We'd have to get permission, obviously, from the state to put the camera up there. But right now, as long through the ordinance process and so on, it's a policy and a procedural thing to get that done. So everything is already being looked at. Yeah, you're right. There's liability, but right now with the trooper reviewing every citation that does go out and verifying it, which doesn't take that long. You'd think hundreds would be that much, but we've already looked at that. We've already had Vicki take a look at the program, take a look at the traffic. She feels confident that it's something that she can handle in her weekly duties here in town, based on the data that we've collected, at least so far on the numbers. Again, the numbers that came through that we have, and the numbers are being put together actually into a spreadsheet, and I can certainly send that to you or make it available for anyone to look at. It's all public, record, and we can see how many violators of the current speed limit have come through Kent already. Now, whether or not it's a valid person or it's a first responder, obviously we've got a lot of responders that come whipping through town to get to the firehouse to reply to an issue. Then it's we'll be able to cover that as well, to be able to make sure that we don't spuriously send out citations. But there's, again, only a limited. The state has said there's only a limited thing that you can reply to or go to we're talking about the contested online appeal process.
So Marty, can you send us you went over it briefly, explaining, this offsets this and this covers this, and eventually this offsets this and yada, yada, yada. Do you have something that you can physically show us with the numbers so we can, really? you have a good understanding of it. I assume that, you want to take it to town meeting and you're
Right.
looking for some support from us.
Exactly. Yes, I do have that. Unfortunately, for some reason, I don't have Wi-Fi on my computer where all that data is stored. So I can't send it out. I don't know what text, I'm in my cell phone talking to you tonight. Unfortunately, for some reason, I would have had that available to give it to you right now, but I can't show my screen.
It's not gonna impact the budget transfer.
You can, send it to us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if you
I
would.
will. I will. Yeah, when I get back to a better Wi-Fi system. I thought this hotel had a better
But I do
Wi-Fi.
think the issue winds up being if it's doing every single car, that's in violation. And if our traffic enforcement might give 5 or 6 tickets a day, and all of a sudden it's
Right,
50 or 100,
yeah.
that's a big difference. And then you do that for the whole year. And I just wonder with that activity, something else we're exposed to.
And is the chamber, where's the chamber in on this? Have that been brought to them at all?
As part of, I haven't brought it to anyone yet. I mean, we've talked to it. There's there's certainly a lot of people I've talked to anecdotally that are both against it. I mean, they, on libertarian grounds, they don't like anybody watching them with cameras. There's
Well, especially
concerns
when,
about that.
it's not you, it's your license plate
Yeah.
that they're,
Correct. Correct. And that's what we've, tried to reassure people. They're not looking inside the car.
It's the other
They're
way.
only geared towards catching license plate. So yeah, so there's, but that's a concern, and I'm sure that'll come up in the town meetings and so on.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
That's
but if you,
fine. Okay.
yeah, but the number of people that I've seen personally, I mean, if you've witnessed it yourself, there's a lot of people that speed through this town without any regard for folks. We
Oh,
have,
sure.
Yes,
That's right.
we've all seen it.
Yeah.
So, will you send us the report that you got that showed how many people were going through? And yes,
I will,
that would be
yes.
very helpful too.
All right.
yeah, I definitely will. I'll definitely send it to you.
So that's,
great.
yeah, because at the end of the day, it's not gonna be us, it's gonna be town
It's
meeting
the-
voters
yeah,
who are gonna.
absolutely.
So that's fine.
Yeah,
And in the meantime, this is just the issue of, this is just enabling what you're asking us to do with this.
right,
But
which
it's
is,
not the definitive, at the end of the day, the town's gonna decide whether or not they.
right, but I want to talk to Barbara.
Uh-huh.
So how does this impact the non-bonding that we were utilizing these funds for?
It won't,
It won't.
not
Okay.
at that level.
Okay, all right. Okay,
Can you go to town vote with us, without us?
No.
no, you have to, no.
But it also is contingent on an ordinance change, so the taxpayers will be
Okay,
voting on an ordinance change, and then assuming that you go ahead and pass this forward, they'll be voting on the
okay,
funding.
so they get 2 bites at the apple. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
This is kind of like, the school thing with this room, it's the same thing, which is that the voter, there's certain things the voters do want to weigh in on, so as long as we've got this built in.
Absolutely.
Right,
Yeah, They
okay.
have to, we're not doing this on our own.
No, program and all have to be approved 100%. That's why the ordinance have to be in place, and that's what I think Chris Harrington had a question I saw on the chat about what if someone else is driving your vehicle and they hit a, well,
That's what I mean.
it's the vehicle that's the operator, whoever it is. It could be a family member, it could be lending a car out. If they're speeding, then you would have to have that talk as the owner of the vehicle to that individual you let use your vehicle about their speeding, and whether you get them to pay the ticket or not, that's totally up to you. Again, because it doesn't go to any tickets or excuse me, any points on the
It's not
license or any.
points, it's not all that stuff, okay, got you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So then the resident trooper will still give out tickets, correct?
Oh, yeah, correct. Oh, yeah. No, yeah, she'll be still doing her job, but she's not on 24/7, and we don't have 24/7 trooper coverage on every road. This would help us, again, she's been doing a tremendous job of trying to be out there at different times of the day when we get calls for certain activity going on in different parts of the town. She responds. She's been working weekends and nights. She'll do a special drive-by to look at, at a time, there's some times we had Sunday afternoon, kids on a four-wheeler driving on a road, I think on anywhere up in the hollow, I think somewhere. She actually went over, as well as the Patrol One, a trooper also went over and actually had a talk with the individuals. And, and we'll still do that for sure. But again, this is, only this is for the vehicles, licensed vehicles that we'd be able to do, which includes motorcycles too.
By the way, and the other thing just about this is, if we're going down this path, are we also going to upgrade the speed limit signage? So, the visibility of it, and a good example is when you're coming up 22, the speed limit changes like 4 times and you don't even notice the signs. And frankly, that gives you, the ability to kind of, if you do get ticketed, to argue about it. Because, I do think when you get into these things and you haven't done enough to inform the drivers what the speed limit is that they're violating, I think that increases, the likelihood that you're gonna, be contested.
If there's an issue with not having an actual speed limit sign somewhere in around on our town roads or the roads that were in the town of Kent, we'll address that with the state as well as our own public works to put up better signs. But we've done the town's done a great job of pulling this all together. They had a committee that sat and looked at all that stuff and put it down. So they've actually increased the signs. The state's increased the signs. Now, speaking of signs, there will be signs, a requirement to have signs up that says speed cameras in use. So if that again encourages people to slow down and to be aware, that of their speed, that's great. But right now, as we all know, people, don't always obey the signs that are right in front of them. It's a blinking sign saying, speed limit is, say, Elizabeth Street, 15 miles an hour during, the school hours. And when kids are going to school, I see people going through at 35 and 40 miles an hour.
I just know I've never seen these signs in the whole time I've lived in Kent. So just for example, right now, I cannot tell you if I've ever seen a speed limit sign on 341 or on Route 7.
Yeah, there's one right outside of town here on 341.
Okay.
And it was changed to 25 miles an hour, so it used to be 35.
And then
Yeah.
25.
35 and 25 and then down the road.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but there, again, like you said, there'll be speed signs in there. I know. Yeah, Chris, I agree with Chris. If this program works and people become aware and realize that they have to watch their speed, great. Then we mothball this program and move on. But right now it is an issue. It's been an issue. As first selectman, I don't have dozens, numerous dozens of people calling about speeding all over the town. Again, the speed cameras can be used and moved. Right now, we're looking at primarily doing in the middle of town coming, we have more, I'm really concerned with the people crossing, Route 7 to go to lunch at Swift or at Wilson's or wherever, because there isn't a crosswalk there. We have a lot of people jumping out there. Last Saturday, I was walking uptown and I heard screeching of brakes and someone was trying to cross and someone else was speeding down the road. We also have people not obeying the crosswalk signs, which you must obey crosswalk and give preference to the people in the crosswalk. But there's a lot of folks that don't know that, even in Connecticut. Even though it's a state law in Connecticut, there's people from out of town that don't know that or aren't really paying attention. So, this is a tool to be used, and if the tool is no longer usable or not making sense, then we move on.
Taking your life in your own hands.
Yep.
Okay.
It's just the way
So
it
with the
is.
people on their cell phones crossing the crosswalk, not looking, that truck is bigger than they
Well,
are,
yeah,
so,
there's- yeah,
they've
there's-
got some
yeah,
responsibility too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay.
Okay, so,
So in terms of was this a posting or do we have to vote on
we
the
would have,
You have to recommend the expenditure to the taxpayers.
we're not voting on a transfer yet.
Okay.
No,
Just recommending
it wouldn't be a
the
budget transfer. This is actually change to the budget.
Right.
When we increase the
Gotcha.
budget.
And I was, are we comfortable with that? I mean, we have a lot of other things pending. I mean, possibilities out there, I'm concerned about,
EMS.
EMS,
Marty, is 50,000 a hard number?
The cost, as you see in the camera, a piece, excuse me, let me get back to that.
Is that a solid
it's
number,
about-
or is it, 47,328 or something?
It's 47.32, but yeah, just want to make sure that there isn't any change by the time we get there. You know how things go up in price every time you turn around, but those are the quoted price for now would be up to, 47,000. So it would be up to 50,000. It would only be the actual cost of the cameras themselves. Which is.
Budget, that's for the current budget year?
So right now, the current cost is 47,000
Correct.
flat or,
Okay, well, that's what I want to see then.
yeah,
Those
right,
are the quote is 46,296.
okay. 46,296. And
That's for the-
what
yeah.
they're saying not to exceed 50, is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what that's what the board of selectmen said, not to exceed 50.
Okay, but right now the quote is 46,296, so why would it?
How long is that good for? The 46.
It says until the end of December,
So 12/31,
Expiration date is 12/27/2024 for this price.
12/27.
So there would be time to have the town meeting.
Correct, that's
Before
why,
that
I asked at least to give it to me at the end of December to have the town meetings before we get into budget season. We do have obviously the town meeting, the required one in January. And it could go to there. I just was hoping to get this program going, by the first of the year, but if we have enough time for town meetings and so on.
Okay, so, discussion by the board? Anybody? Further questions for Marty?
What do we have in the undesignated fund?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head, I want to say 3.2 million,
Yeah, there's plenty of money in there, I mean, I've got the,
50,000.
So it's not material.
I've got the budget out here, that's why I didn't have any. Yeah.
But so that's,
Yeah. Okay, so does anybody want to make the motion?
so, I would move that we allocate from the undesignated fund. I guess
296.
$46,296. Okay, to provide for expenses related to the automated speed enforcement program.
As requested by the Board of Selectmen?
Yes.
Okay, good,
You got that, Rufus?
all right. Anybody want to second that?
This is
I'll
only
second
step
it.
one, yeah, this is.
I'll second it. Further discussion? No, there being none? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, 3-2. So it was not an overwhelming majority, Marty.
I understand.
Right, frankly, my heart wants to say no.
Yeah, but we've all seen it
Right.
and we've all been subject to it, so yeah, we get it.
Well,
Okay. So we have no public here, so I'm not even gonna read, oh, wait a minute, we might
Anybody,
have somebody in mind,
I know
yes,
Chris was, even though we
Yes.
haven't seen it.
yes. So anybody from the public wishing to speak? Anybody from the public wishing to speak? Anybody from the public wishing to speak?
I'll wait till the next meeting when Marty brings this before the rest of the people of the town.
And who is, oh, this is Chris, okay, thank you, Chris. All right, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Oh, did we approve the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
We did, okay. That's all I.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
I adjourn.
Thank you.
To adjourn.
okay,
Bye, guys.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And